just before this part, it tells about how the disciples were out fishing, and as they were coming into shore, they saw that there was somebody had built a little fire there, and turned out it was Jesus, and he fried up some fish for them all to have for breakfast. When they'd finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." A second time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter felt hurt because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep." Very truly, I tell you, when you were younger, you used to fasten your own belt and go wherever you wished. But when you grow old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will fasten a belt around you and take you where you do not wish to go. He said this to indicate the kind of death by which he would glorify God. After this, he said to him, "Follow me." Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following them. He was the one who had reclined next to Jesus at the supper and said, "Lord, who is it that's going to betray you?" When Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, "Lord, what about him?" Jesus said to him, "If it's my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? Follow me." So the rumor spread in the community that this disciple would not die. Yet Jesus did not say to him that he wouldn't die, but, "If it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you?" And then from the letter to the Galatians, chapter 2, verses 11 to 14. Here, Paul refers to Peter as Cephas. Peter's actual name was Simon. And when Jesus said to him, "You are the rock," he used the Aramaic word for rock, and that's Cephas, is sort of a putting into English of the Aramaic word, which was actually Kepha. But it became Cephas somewhere on its way through Latin to English. So when Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he stood self-condemned. For until certain people came from James, he used to eat with the Gentiles. But after they came, he drew back and kept himself separate for fear of the circumcision faction. And the other Jews joined him in this hypocrisy, so that even Barnabas was led astray by their hypocrisy. But when I saw that they were not acting consistently with the truth of the gospel, I said to Cephas before them all, "If you, though a Jew, live like a Gentile and not like a Jew, how can you compel the Gentiles to live like Jews?" This is the word of the Lord. Thank you. My daughter has a friend whom she met when both of them were pregnant with their first child. And so my grandson Gavin was born within a couple of weeks of when Clara Monk was born. And there came a time some years after that, Lee Wen, my daughter's friend, went through a very troubling time, and her father particularly just wouldn't speak to her, wouldn't have anything to do with her. She'd done a terrible thing. And so I sort of adopted her as an extra daughter, which has been a real blessing. She's brilliant, and her full-time job is working at First Presbyterian Church Berkeley, and she runs their website for them and does a bunch of other stuff like that. But she's also a very accomplished musician with a master's degree in choral conducting. And she got tapped for the fall quarter at University of California in Berkeley to direct their concert choir, and they did a big performance of Fauré's Requiem just about a week ago, I think. I had not talked to her for a couple of months. She was way too busy with one full-time job and another very demanding job. But yesterday I talked with Lee Wen on the phone, and in the course of the conversation, I said, well, how was it, doing that choir work? She said, well, I kind of forget about people in the arts, how much drama there is. And she said that she was able to get through that by, as soon as there was any hint or moving into a situation where maybe there was going to be a lot of drama, she said, I just would stop and I would pray for God to keep me calm and give me peace. And it went very well. And then she said, why does it take so long to get to this point? She's my daughter's age, mid-40s. And it does take, I think, for most of us, decades to get to where we learn how to step aside and stay in touch with God and get through tough things by connecting with God. So I wanted to talk about some elements of being a mature Christian. The background of the reading from John is that a couple of chapters before, in chapter 18, when Jesus was arrested, and Peter couldn't stand not knowing what's happening, so he kind of tagged along, but when somebody accused him of being one of Jesus' followers, he said, oh, no, I don't know that man. That happened 3 times. And so here, a lot of people think the 3 times question and answer is kind of to undo the 3 times that he failed Jesus and denied him. Now, I'd like to suggest that one piece of being a mature Christian is if you have failed, you don't stay stuck in that failure. If it's yesterday or last week or 40 years ago, you don't have to stay stuck in that failure. You can let it go, receive God's forgiveness, and move forward. So that's one. Don't stay stuck in your failures. Another mark of maturity, look at the last part of the reading where Peter is saying, well, what about that other disciple? And Jesus essentially says, what's going on with him is none of your business. You need to be concerned about what's going on with you. It's so easy to find somebody else who's maybe not doing all that well and just to focus a lot of emotional energy obsessing about that person when God calls you to focus on yourself in your relationship with God and calls you to focus on your own spiritual growth. So I think maturity doesn't stay stuck in old failures. maturity doesn't put its emotional energy into obsessing about other people and their issues and problems. Now, the little bit from the letter to the Galatians, the issue behind that is if you're a good, faithful Jew in those days, you would not take a meal with somebody who wasn't Jewish. You just wouldn't sit down and eat at the same table with them. That was a huge no-no. Well, God had shown Peter that actually God accepts non-Jews as much as Jews, and that there's not this huge dividing line. And so when Peter came to visit the Christians in Antioch, which was a couple days' walk from Jerusalem, he was just fine with having meals with the Christians there, many of whom were not Jewish, until James, who was kind of head of the church in Jerusalem, showed up. And then, Peter wasn't going to do that when James could see him. And that's the hypocrisy that Paul is talking about when he writes to the Christians in Galatia. So I'd like to suggest a third mark of Christian maturity is a willingness to accept somebody else correcting me or calling me on when I'm not living up to who I'm supposed to be. That's a tough one, actually. It's not easy to hear somebody else's criticism, even when underneath I know they're absolutely right, and I did mess up, and they're just pointing it out to me. But if it's somebody that I believe has my best interest at heart, then I can hear it. So that's one I'm trying to get better at. But Christian maturity then, don't stay stuck in an old failure. Don't be obsessing about other people. Focus on your own relationship with God and your own integrity, and then don't shut it out when somebody's pointing out how you might do better. So for a fourth mark of Christian maturity, that last bit of the not the last bit, the middle bit of the John reading, when Jesus said to Peter, when you were young, you could get dressed, fasten your belt means you could get dressed and go wherever you wanted to go, but when you're old, somebody else is going to tie the belt around you and take you where you don't want to go. Referring probably to the fact that Peter's life ended with a crucifixion. But I thought, part of Christian maturity is accepting that I'm not in control. Most of us really like to have a sense of control over our circumstances and our life. And if you grew up as more than a tiny handful of us did in an alcoholic family, part of the dynamic of an alcoholic family system is as the young child, things are out of control and you can't make them in control, so you grow up as a person with an unusually high need to be in control. Was a long and painful journey for me to learn to let go of that, and I'm sure I haven't 100% let go of it. But Christian maturity is accepting that God is in control of my life, and actually that my life goes better when I let go of the high need to be in control and let God be in control. I have not taken account of how many people have asked me now, especially now that the pastor nominating committee is kind of moving into the, third from the last stage of their work. Well, what are you going to do when when you're finished being interim pastor here. And there's a part of me that really would like to pin that down and be sure. Where am I going to live? What am I going to be doing? I have to keep over and over again saying, God knows what I'm going to do. God knows where I'm going to be. And I trust that it's going to be fine, because I've learned over the years, when God's in charge, things go well. When I try to take control away from God and make it happen my way, things can go pretty disastrously for me. So, I don't know. God's in charge. So, 4 marks, I think, of Christian maturity. Don't stay stuck in old failure. Move on. Accept forgiveness. Move on. And don't focus all your energy on other people and their problems and what they're not doing so well. But accept responsibility for your own spiritual growth. And when you need to hear somebody telling you what you messed up, don't shut that out. And accept, I think maybe the most important one, accept that you're not in control, God's in control, and life is better when you and I accept that. It's the cry of my heart to follow you, cry of my heart to be close to you. Teach me your holy ways, O Lord, so I can walk in your truth. Teach me your holy ways, O Lord, and make me wholly devoted to you. Christian maturity is willingly learning God's holy ways